You wake up in Victorian London, 1875. Your head pounds like someone's using your skull as a church bell. The morning light filtering through your lace curtains feels like needles in your eyes. Your hands shake as you reach for the small brown bottle on your nightstand, the same bottle your mother reached for and her mother before her. The cork makes a soft pop. That sound means relief is coming. You measure out 20 drops into a glass of water. The bitter liquid clouds the water like storm clouds gathering over the Thames. As you drink, the taste hits you. Imagine licking a copper penny that's been soaked in grain alcohol and sadness. But in 5 minutes, you won't care about the taste. In 5 minutes, you'll feel like you're floating above your corset, above your duties, above everything that makes you want to scream into your embroidered pillows. Welcome to Victorian London, where 5 out of 6 families keep opium in their medicine cabinet like you keep ibuprofen in yours. Where being a proper lady means suffering in silence, and laudanum, that magical mix of opium and alcohol, is the only friend who truly understands. The streets outside your window are already alive with the clip-clop of horses and the cries of flower sellers. Violets, fresh violets for the lady. But you're not listening. You're waiting for the warmth to spread through your chest, that familiar numbness that makes everything bearable. Your husband will be down for breakfast soon, expecting his eggs exactly how he likes them, his newspaper ironed flat, his boots polished to mirror brightness. But first, you need your medicine. Here's the thing nobody talks about at tea parties. By 1850, more than 60% of opium addicts in London are women. Not the fallen women in Whitechapel's dark alleys, not the actresses and artists everyone whispers about. Regular women. Women like you, trapped between whalebone corsets and impossible expectations, between duty and despair. Your neighbour, Mrs. Whitmore, takes 30 drops every morning for her nervous constitution. The baker's wife down the street gives her baby Godfrey's cordial to keep him quiet while she works. It's basically opium syrup marketed for infants. Even Queen Victoria herself takes laudanum for her monthly pains, though of course nobody mentions that in polite company. The warmth is spreading now. Your hands have stopped shaking. The pounding in your head softens to a distant drum. You can face another day of calling cards and charity committees, of smiling when you want to sob, of being the perfect angel in the house, while feeling like a caged bird slowly forgetting how to sing. You smooth down your black bombazine dress, still in mourning for a child who died 2 winters ago, though everyone thinks you should be over it by now. The laudanum helps with that too. It makes the sharp edges of grief feel soft and distant, like looking at your life through frosted glass. Downstairs you hear your husband's heavy footsteps. Time to play your part. You cork the bottle, hide it behind your jewellery box and pinch your cheeks to bring back some colour. Nobody can know. That's the beautiful, terrible thing about laudanum. It's invisible. Unlike gin, it doesn't make you smell. Unlike tobacco, it doesn't stain your fingers. It's the perfect drug for the perfect lady. As you descend the stairs, each step measured and graceful despite the slight floating feeling in your head, you catch your reflection in the hallway mirror. Your pupils are pinpricks, but nobody ever looks that closely. Your skin is pale, but that's fashionable. You look exactly like what you're supposed to be, a respectable Victorian woman. If only they knew that respectability comes in a small brown bottle, 20 drops at a time. The dining room smells of kippers and strong tea. Your husband sits behind his newspaper, a wall of printed words between you. "Good morning, dear," you say, your voice steady as a metronome. He grunts in response, already absorbed in stock prices and colonial news. You pour his tea with hands that no longer shake, add 2 sugars, no milk, place it exactly where he likes it. To the right of his plate, handle turned at 45 degrees. These small rituals feel like programming a machine. But the laudanum makes you feel like you're watching yourself from above, a ghostly puppeteer pulling your own strings. The Ashfords are hosting a dinner party Saturday, you mention, buttering his toast with mechanical precision. She's invited us particularly. He says, which means yes. After 15 years of marriage, you've learned to decode his grunts like ancient hieroglyphics. Outside, London churns on. Somewhere in Limehouse, Chinese sailors are preparing opium pipes in dark dens that the newspapers love to scandalise about. But those exotic dens account for maybe 1% of the city's opium consumption. The real epidemic isn't in the shadows of the East End. It's right here, in respectable drawing rooms and proper bedrooms, measured out in careful drops by women whose pain has no other outlet. By noon, the effects will start to fade. You'll feel that familiar anxiety creeping back, that tightness in your chest that makes you want to claw at your corset strings. But you'll wait until after lunch. You've learned to space out your doses to make the bottle last. Too much too fast and the chemist might start asking questions. This is your life now. A carefully choreographed dance between numbness and pain, between propriety and desperation. And you're not alone. All across London, in townhouses and tenements, in Belgravia mansions and Bermondsey slums, women are reaching for their little brown bottles, finding their only escape in a drug that's slowly stealing their lives while saving their sanity. The grandfather clock in the hallway strikes 10. You've made it through breakfast, through your husband's, departure for his club, through the morning ritual of instructing the servants. Now you're alone in your parlour, and the laudanum is wearing off faster than usual. Your body is building tolerance, a word you won't learn for another decade because doctors haven't figured it out yet. You walk to your writing desk, past the portrait of your mother-in-law who died last year. She introduced you to laudanum, actually. For your monthly troubles, dear, she'd said, pressing the bottle into your hands after your wedding night. Every proper woman needs her little helper. The irony tastes more bitter than the medicine itself. Your husband can drink himself stupid at his gentleman's club every night, and society calls it networking. But if you were caught with a glass of sherry before evening, you'd be labelled a fallen woman faster than you can say temperance movement. So instead, you take your opium, discreetly, medically, respectably. You pull out your household account book. The chemist's bill has grown again this month. Laudanum, 2 shillings. Godfrey's cordial for baby Thomas, 1 shilling 6pence. Dr. Collis Brown's chlorodyne, a new preparation your friend Margaret swears by, 3 shillings. Your husband never questions medical expenses. After all, women are naturally weak, naturally hysterical, naturally in need of constant medical attention. At least that's what the doctors say. The truth is more complicated, and if you really think about it, which the laudanum usually prevents you from doing, you'd realise you're funding an empire built on addiction. Right now, in India, British overseers are forcing farmers to grow opium poppies instead of food crops. Those poppies will be processed and shipped to China, where British merchants will sell them despite Chinese laws against it. The profit from that trade, millions of pounds sterling, flows back to London, funding the very churches where you pray every Sunday, the museums where you take your children, the government that rules a quarter of the world. You're not supposed to know this. Ladies don't concern themselves with politics or trade. But sometimes, when the laudanum makes your thoughts flow strange and free, you wonder if the entire British Empire is just one giant opium den, with everyone too high on profit or pleasure to see what's really happening. A knock at the door interrupts your thoughts. It's your friend Charlotte, arriving for your weekly charity committee meeting. You quickly close the account book and check your pupils in the mirror. Still too small. You pull the curtains partially closed. The light gives me such headaches, dear, and greet her with the practiced smile of a woman who's learned to function while floating. Charlotte looks tired. Her youngest has been keeping her up nights, she says. You know what she's really asking. You pull out your sewing basket and from beneath the embroidery threads you produce a small bottle. Just a few drops in his evening milk, you whisper. It's what my mother did for all of us. She takes it gratefully, and you both pretend this is perfectly normal. Just 2 respectable women sharing household remedies. Nothing like those awful opium dens in Limehouse that the Illustrated London News keeps writing about, with their yellow-skinned Chinamen corrupting innocent English girls. The racism is as thick as the opium smoke, but neither of you questions it. The Chinese are convenient scapegoats for a problem that started long before they arrived. British merchants were selling opium to anyone who'd buy it when your grandmother was young. The only difference now is that there's someone foreign to blame. Your maid brings in tea and small sandwiches. The cucumber tastes like nothing, another side effect of regular laudanum use, though you don't know that either. Food has become fuel, nothing more. The only flavour that matters comes in a brown bottle. Charlotte is talking about the new temperance speaker coming to town. She says alcohol is destroying the working classes, Charlotte explains, nibbling a sandwich with the dedication of someone who's forgotten what hunger feels like. We simply must do something about these gin palaces. You nod along, both of you floating on your perfectly legal, perfectly respectable opium clouds, discussing the evils of alcohol. The hypocrisy would be funny if it weren't so tragic. But here's the darkest joke of all. You're the lucky ones. You can afford pure laudanum from reputable chemists. Down in the East End, working-class women are buying whatever they can afford, often contaminated with lead, mercury, or God knows what else. They're giving their babies soothing syrups that are basically opium mixed with whatever's cheap. The infant mortality rate in Manchester's working-class districts is double the national average, and nobody's connecting the dots. Well, some people are starting to. There's a young doctor named James Henderson who's been writing papers about infant poisoning from these cordials. But the pharmaceutical companies are powerful, and their advertisements promise miracles. Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup for children teething softens the gums, reduces inflammation. They don't mention that it contains 65 milligrams of morphine per fluid ounce. You know Mrs. Winslow's well. You gave it to all 3 of your children, the 2 who survived anyway. Sometimes, late at night, when the laudanum wears off and the guilt seeps in, you wonder about little Edmund. Was it the scarlet fever that took him? Or was it the medicine you gave him to quiet his cries? But you can't think about that now. Charlotte is asking about the charity bazaar next month. You need to organise the church ladies, coordinate the donations, ensure everything runs smoothly. You're good at organising things when you're properly medicated. The laudanum doesn't make you sloppy like gin would. It makes you efficient, mechanical, perfect. A strange rebellion is building in the women of London, though none of you would call it that. You're not marching in the streets or demanding the vote. That's for those awful suffragettes everyone talks about. No, your rebellion is quieter, more insidious. You're checking out of your lives 20 drops at a time, creating a soft, hazy barrier between yourselves and a world that offers you no other escape. By the time Charlotte leaves, promising to report back on the success of the baby cordial, you're ready for your afternoon dose. Just 10 drops this time. You're trying to be good. But as the bitter liquid slides down your throat, you wonder if being good is just another cage, and whether the real tragedy isn't the addiction itself, but the fact that it's the only freedom you've ever tasted. 3 o'clock, time for social calls. You're standing in Mrs. Pemberton's drawing room, balancing a delicate china teacup that feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. The laudanum isn't working as well anymore. You can feel reality creeping in around the edges, sharp and uncomfortable like a corset that's been laced too tight. Mrs. Pemberton is holding court about the shocking behaviour of her housemaid. Found her with a gin bottle, can you imagine? In my very own home! The other ladies cluck their tongues in synchronised disapproval. You cluck along even though your purse contains a flask of laudanum that would knock a horse unconscious. The room smells of rosewater and lies. Every woman here is hiding something. Mrs. Pemberton takes chloral hydrate for her sleeping troubles. Lady Worthington to your left has track marks on her arm from her new doctor's marvellous morphine injections, hidden under long gloves, of course. Young Mrs. Davies in the corner is pregnant again, and already planning which women's tonic she'll use to recover after the birth. These tonics have names that sound like poetry. Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound, 20% alcohol and a healthy dose of cannabis. Doctor, Pierce's favourite prescription, opium, alcohol and digitalis. Vin Mariani, cocaine dissolved in wine, endorsed by the Pope himself. They're advertised in every ladies' magazine, right next to recipes for seed cake and advice on managing servants. You excuse yourself to use the water closet, but really you need another dose. In the privacy of Mrs. Pemberton's bathroom, all mahogany and brass fixtures that probably cost more than a factory worker makes in a year, you pull out your flask. The face in the mirror looks back at you with hollow eyes. When did you get so thin? When did your skin turn the colour of old newspaper? 20 drops. No, 30. You need 30 now to feel normal. The bitter taste doesn't even register anymore. Your tongue has been trained to ignore it, the way you've been trained to ignore everything else that hurts. The loveless marriage, the dead children, the endless, suffocating expectations, the fact that you're brilliant and educated but can't vote, can't own property in your own name, can't even walk outside without a chaperone without risking your reputation. Back in the drawing room, the conversation has shifted to the latest scandal. Some actress named Billy something was found in a Chinese opium den in Limehouse. Absolutely disgraceful, Lady Worthington declares, adjusting her gloves to hide the puncture marks. These theatrical types have no morals whatsoever. You want to laugh. You want to scream. You want to tell them that you've thought about going to those dens yourself. Not for the opium, you have plenty of that, but for the honesty of it. At least there, nobody pretends to be something they're not. At least there, the addiction isn't dressed up in medical terminology and moral superiority. But you don't say any of this. You sip your tea and nod at appropriate intervals, a well-trained automaton powered by opium and social conditioning. The truth is, you're all part of a massive medical experiment that nobody's monitoring. These doctors, all men, naturally, are prescribing opiates for everything from period cramps to hysteria, which is basically their word for any emotion women display that makes them uncomfortable. Sad? Take laudanum. Angry? Take laudanum. Opinions? Definitely take laudanum. Dr. Hartwell, your physician, prescribed it initially for your nervous exhaustion after Edmund died. That was 3 years ago. He's never once suggested you stop taking it. Why would he? Every prescription means another fee. Every visit means another guinea in his pocket. He's got a thriving practice built entirely on keeping respectable women comfortably numb. Sometimes you wonder what would happen if you all stopped taking your medicine at once. If every woman in London suddenly woke up clear-headed and felt the full weight of their reality. Would the city burn? Would Parliament fall? Would the empire itself crumble? The thought makes you dizzy. Or maybe that's just the laudanum mixing badly with the cream cakes. Young Mrs. Davies is speaking now, her voice high and nervous. She's asking about remedies for morning sickness. The older women exchange knowing looks and begin their pharmaceutical recommendations. Dr. Batty's sedative solution worked wonders for me. Have you tried Dalby's carminative? It settles the stomach beautifully. Nobody mentions that Dr. Batty's contains opium. Nobody mentions that Dalby's carminative is basically liquid morphine. Nobody mentions that Mrs. Davies' unborn child is already being exposed to opiates, already beginning its life in a gentle haze of chemical dependence. This is how it spreads, you realise. Not through Chinese conspiracies or working-class degradation, but through drawing rooms and doctors' offices, through women's magazines and whispered recommendations between friends. The empire's drug trade doesn't end in Chinese ports. It ends here, in the medicine cabinets of proper English homes. Your own children are downstairs in the nursery right now, being watched by their governess. She's probably giving them their afternoon spoonful of soothing syrup to keep them quiet, while she reads her penny romance novels. You should care more about this. You should be alarmed. But the laudanum makes everything feel distant and unimportant, like it's happening to someone else's children in someone else's life. The clock chimes 4. Time to leave, to return to your own prison of marble and mahogany. You make your excuses, kiss cheeks that feel like paper, promise to attend next week's charity luncheon for the prevention of vice among the working classes. Outside, London's air hits you like a slap. It's thick with coal smoke and horse manure, but after the cloying perfume of the drawing room, it almost feels fresh. Your carriage is waiting, your driver patient and discreet. He's seen you stumble before, seen your pupils contracted to pinpoints, but he's paid well enough to see nothing at all. As the carriage rolls through the streets, you pass a chemist's shop. The window display promises relief from every conceivable ailment. Female pills for obstructions, nerve tonic for exhaustion, infant quietness guaranteed. It's like looking at a candy store if candy could slowly kill you while making you not care that you're dying. You close your eyes and let the rhythm of the carriage wheels lull you into that familiar floating state. Somewhere in this city, Queen Victoria herself is probably taking her evening dose. Somewhere, a factory girl is spending her last penny on cheap laudanum instead of food. Somewhere, a baby is crying itself to sleep, its tiny body processing more morphine than a wounded soldier. This is the real Victorian London, not the one in the history books with its steam engines and colonial glory, but a city of women held together by careful doses of paradise, measured out in drops, surviving their lives one brown bottle at a time. The Morning Post arrives with a thud. Between the bills and calling cards, there's a new catalogue from Harrods. You flip through pages of gloves and gowns until you reach the back section. Pharmaceutical goods and patent medicines. Your heart beats a little faster, This is better than any fashion plate. Chlorodyne, the great remedy for coughs, colds, asthma, bronchitis, cholera, diarrhea, neuralgia. The advertisement shows a serene woman, clearly in the bloom of health, holding a bottle like it's the Holy Grail. What it doesn't mention is that chlorodyne is basically liquid opium with a splash of cannabis for good measure. You've tried it. It made you see colours that don't exist and have a long conversation with your deceased grandmother, but that's not even the wildest thing in your medicine cabinet. You walk to your dressing room, where behind a false panel you've had installed, the carpenter thought it was for jewellery, sits your real collection, 47 bottles and counting. You're like a sommelier of sedatives, a connoisseur of chemical comfort. Here's the truly insane part. Everything in this cabinet is completely legal. You could walk into any chemist's shop in London right now and buy enough opium to kill a regiment. No prescription needed, no questions asked, just money on the counter and relief in a bottle. The year is 1876, and the Pharmacy Act passed 8 years ago was supposed to regulate things. What a joke. All it did was require chemists to label bottles with poison if they contained scheduled substances, as if that stops anyone. If anything, it's helpful. Now you know which medicines actually work. Your collection is organised by strength and purpose. The morning bottles, mild laudanum preparations for basic maintenance. The afternoon selection, stronger tinctures for when the children are being particularly trying. The evening arsenal, chloral hydrate for sleep, though you have to be careful with that one. Mrs. Ashbury down the street took too much last month and slept for 3 days straight. Her husband thought she was dead and had already called the undertaker when she finally woke up. There's a knock at your door. It's Dr. Hartwell making his weekly house call. You quickly close the cabinet and arrange yourself on the chaise lounge, making sure to look appropriately wan and delicate. "How are we feeling today, Mrs. Morrison?" he asks, already reaching for his medical bag. He's got the soft look of a man who samples his own wares. His pupils are pinned, and there's a slight tremor in his hands that he tries to hide. "Oh, doctor, the usual troubles," you sigh, playing your part in this medical theatre. The headaches, the nervousness, the exhaustion. He nods sagely, as if you've described something deeply complex rather than the universal condition of being a woman in Victorian England. From his bag, he produces a new bottle. The label is handwritten in Latin. Doctors love their Latin. It makes everything sound official and mysterious. "This is a new preparation from Germany," he says, his voice taking on the tone of a priest offering communion. "Highly effective for nervous disorders. 1 teaspoon 3 times daily." You don't ask what's in it. He wouldn't tell you anyway. Women aren't supposed to understand medicine, just consume it. But you've gotten good at recognising the taste. This new medicine has that familiar bitter bite of opium, mixed with something floral. Probably belladonna. The Germans love their belladonna. Dr. Hartwell charges you 2 guineas for the consultation, and 3 for the medicine. That's more than your housemaid makes in a month. But what choice do you have? Without these medicines, you'd have to actually feel things. You'd have to face the fact that your husband hasn't touched you in 2 years, except to produce another heir. You'd have to acknowledge that you're smarter than him, better educated, speak 3 languages to his 1, but you're not allowed to do anything with that intelligence except organise dinner parties and supervise servants. After the doctor leaves, counting his money with those shaking hands, you try the new medicine. It tastes like bitter flowers and broken dreams. Within minutes, the familiar warmth spreads through your chest. But there's something else too. A strange euphoria, like champagne bubbles in your blood. Whatever the Germans added to this, it's delightful. You float downstairs to check on the children. The nursery is quiet. Too quiet. You find your governess, Miss Harper, slumped in a chair, the children playing unsupervised. An empty bottle of infant quietness sits on the side table. She's given herself a dose meant for the children. You should fire her immediately. Instead, you gently shake her awake and pretend not to notice. Glass houses and all that. Your eldest daughter, Catherine, is reading a book of fairy tales to her younger brothers. She's 12 now, almost a woman by Victorian standards. Soon you'll have to prepare her for her own future of corsets and calling cards, of submission and sedation. The thought makes you reach for the little flask you keep in your pocket. "Mamma, why do you take so much medicine?" Catherine asks suddenly, those sharp eyes missing nothing. You could lie. You should lie. Instead, the German medicine makes you honest. Because, my darling, sometimes being awake hurts too much. She nods as if this makes perfect sense and returns to her fairy tales. You wonder if she's already planning her own escape routes, already learning that in this world women's pain is treated but never prevented, medicated but never addressed. The afternoon post brings medical advertisements, dozens of them. They slip them into everything now, tucked between pages of Dickens, wrapped around bars of soap, even printed on the back of omnibus tickets. Wives, mothers, try Dr. Williams' pink pills for pale people. Ladies, restore your vitality with Vin Mariani. Each one promises to cure what ails you without ever asking why you're ailing in the first place. You collect them sometimes, these advertisements. They're like a catalogue of acceptable female suffering. Hysteria, nervousness, exhaustion, melancholy, irritability. There's a drug for each one, but there's no medicine for the actual disease. Being a woman in a world that sees you as property, a decorative object that occasionally malfunctions and needs chemical adjustment. Your friend Margaret arrives for tea, and you can tell immediately she's found something new. She has that glittery-eyed look of someone who's discovered a fresh form of oblivion. "Morphine injections," she whispers, pulling off her gloves to show you the tiny puncture marks. Dr. Richardson has a new Pravas syringe from Paris. It's absolutely revolutionary. The relief is instant, no waiting for drops to work. She describes the feeling with the passion of a convert. The needle sliding under the skin, the immediate rush of warmth, the complete erasure of all discomfort. It sounds terrifying. It sounds wonderful. You make a mental note to visit Dr. Richardson next week. This is how it spreads among your class. Through recommendations and revelations, through drawing room whispers and medical innovations. You're all guinea pigs in an uncontrolled experiment, testing the limits of how much opium a human body can process while still maintaining the appearance of respectability. Your husband's study reeks of cigars and colonial pride. Maps of the empire cover every wall, red patches spreading across continents like a rash. You're not supposed to be in here, but the German medicine has made you bold, and you need to understand something. You pull down his ledgers from the East India Company. He's a shareholder, like most men of his class. The numbers swim before your eyes, but one thing is clear. Opium sales to China account for nearly 20% of British India's revenue. 20%. The empire runs on opium the way machines run on coal. Here's what you're starting to piece together in your medicated haze. The same ships that bring tea to your breakfast table are carrying opium to Canton. The same merchants who supply your laudanum are destroying Chinese families. The whole thing is one giant circle of addiction, and you're all trapped in it. Chinese peasants, British ladies, Indian farmers, everyone except the men getting rich from the trade. A sound in the hallway makes you quickly close the ledger. It's Thomas, your middle child, age 8. He's holding his stomach and crying. "It hurts, Mama." You know what to do. Every mother knows. You lead him to the kitchen and prepare a dose of Godfrey's cordial. 1 teaspoon, maybe 2. He makes a face at the taste but drinks it down. Within minutes he's calm, drowsy, compliant. You've just given your 8-year-old son enough opium to tranquilize an adult, and this is considered good mothering. The kitchen maid, Sally, watches from the corner. She's got that knowing look. You realise she probably uses the same cordial for her own troubles. The only difference between you and Sally is that you can afford the good stuff from Savoury and Moore on Bond Street, while she's buying whatever's cheapest from the corner druggist. "My mum gave us gin for the bellyaches," Sally says quietly. "But the cordial works better, don't it?" You nod. There's a strange democracy in addiction. It doesn't care about class or breeding. The opium in your cut crystal bottle works exactly the same as the opium in Sally's brown glass flask. Back in your parlour, you find an unexpected visitor. It's Mrs. Chen, the Chinese merchant's wife from 2 streets over. The neighbours whisper about her, about how her husband made his fortune in trade. Everyone knows this means opium. She's beautifully dressed in English fashion, but with small rebellious touches, jade earrings, silk, embroidered with dragons barely visible unless you look closely. "I came to return your calling card," she says in perfect English with just a trace of accent. "And to warn you." You offer her tea, curious despite yourself. She's the enemy, according to everything you've been taught. The Chinese are flooding England with opium, corrupting the innocent, spreading their foreign vices. But sitting across from her, she looks like any other London lady, except perhaps more alert, more present. "Your medicines," she says carefully, stirring her tea, "the ones your doctors prescribe so freely. In my country, we call it foreign mud. We know what it does." "It's medicine," you protest, even as your hand unconsciously goes to the flask in your pocket. She laughs, but it's sad rather than mocking. "My grandfather was a merchant in Canton before the British came with their gunboats and their opium. He watched his city rot from the inside. Now I watch the same thing happening here, only you call it medicine and sell it in pretty bottles. You want to argue, but the German medicine is wearing off and reality is seeping back in. She's right, isn't she? You're all rotting from the inside, one respectable dose at a time." Mrs. Chen continues, "My husband thinks it's justice, you know. The British forced opium on China, and now the English poison themselves with it. But I see you, Mrs. Morrison. I see all the English ladies floating through their lives. It's not justice. It's just sad." After she leaves, you sit with her words echoing in your opium-soft brain. You walk to your medicine cabinet and really look at it. 47 bottles of poison, prettily packaged, each one sold to you by a man who swore it would help, each one making you need the next one just a little bit more. Your daughter Catherine finds you there, staring at your collection. "Are you ill, Mamma?" "No, darling, yes. I don't know any more." She takes your hand with a maturity beyond her 12 years. "Miss Harper says the medicine helps ladies bear their crosses." Their crosses? As if suffering is just part of the uniform, like corsets and calling cards. You wonder what would happen if women simply refused to bear them anymore. If you all threw away your crosses and your cordials and demanded something better than chemical resignation. But that's revolutionary thinking, and the laudanum you're now preparing, evening dose, 35 drops because 30 isn't enough anymore, will soon wash away such dangerous ideas. This is what it's for, really. Not just to numb the pain, but to prevent the questions that pain might lead to. The evening newspaper arrives with more hysteria about opium dens in Limehouse. "Young English women found in Chinese death traps," screams the headline. You almost laugh. Death traps. Your medicine cabinet could kill 20 people. Your baby's nursery cordial could poison a horse, but those aren't death. Traps. Those are medical treatments prescribed by qualified physicians, sold by respectable chemists, consumed by proper ladies. You drift to the window and watch London settling into evening. Somewhere out there, in factories and workshops, women are spending their last pennies on penny packets of laudanum. In Mayfair mansions, ladies like you are measuring out their evening doses. In the Chinese Quarter, people are smoking the same drug you're drinking, just more honestly. The Empire's great achievement isn't conquering a quarter of the world. It's convincing everyone that their method of destruction is civilization. Their addiction is medicine. Their poison is progress. Your husband comes home, brandy already on his breath from his club. He kisses your cheek absently, asks about your day, doesn't wait for an answer. You could tell him you spent the afternoon contemplating revolution, and he wouldn't notice. The laudanum has made you invisible in your own life, a ghost haunting your own existence. At dinner, you watch your family through your comfortable haze, your husband discussing business, the children fidgeting despite their afternoon cordials, the servants moving silently as shadows. Everyone playing their parts in this grand performance of propriety, everyone secretly medicating themselves to endure it. This is the medicine cabinet revolution. Not a violent overthrow, but a slow surrender, measured out in teaspoons and drops, transforming the unbearable into the barely bearable, one dose at a time. Sunday morning. Church bells are splitting your skull like Thor's hammer having a bad day. You've run out of laudanum, a miscalculation that's about to make the next few hours feel like walking through hell in a bustle and corset. Your hands shake as you dress for church. The withdrawal is starting. You've read enough medical journals, hidden under your embroidery, to know what's happening. Your body has become dependent on the opium. Without it, you're going to suffer. But admitting this would mean admitting addiction, and ladies don't get addicted. Ladies have nervous conditions that require medical management. At church, you sit in your family pew trying not to vomit into your hymnal. The vicar is droning on about the evils of drink among the working classes. The gin palaces are destroying the moral fabric of our society, he thunders from the pulpit. You want to laugh, or maybe scream. Half the congregation is quietly addicted to something. Mrs. Pemberton beside you reeks of chloral hydrate. Lady Ashford's pupils are pinpricks from her morning morphine injection, but gin is the enemy, not the respectable poisons tucked in velvet-lined medicine boxes. Your skin feels like it's crawling with invisible insects. Every nerve ending is screaming. The stained glass windows are too bright, the organ music too loud. It's like having the world's worst hangover while someone plays bagpipes directly into your brain. Your corset, already a medieval torture device on a good day, now feels like it's actively trying to squeeze the life out of you. The woman in front of you turns around to whisper about the new curate. Her breath smells like peppermint trying to mask laudanum. You recognise the sweet, sickly undertone immediately. It takes one to know one. She's had her morning dose. Lucky her. After what feels like 17 years, church ends. You practically sprint home. Well, as much as one can sprint in 15 pounds of fabric and whalebone. Your husband comments on your pallor. Perhaps you should take your medicine, dear, he suggests, oblivious to the irony. Yes, darling, perhaps I should take the medicine that's destroying me from the inside out. But at least I'll be quiet and compliant afterward. The chemist's shop is closed on Sunday, naturally. God forbid anyone need actual medicine on the Sabbath. But you know Mr. Henderson keeps a back door open for emergencies. You slip him twice the usual price through the crack in the door. No questions asked, he knows what you need. Back home, you measure out your dose with shaking hands. 25 drops, maybe 30. Who's counting anymore? The bitter taste floods your mouth, followed by that familiar warmth spreading through your veins. Within minutes, the world softens at the edges. The withdrawal symptoms retreat like tide going out. You can breathe again. But here's the thing about laudanum. It's a liar dressed in an evening gown. It promises relief, but delivers slavery. Each dose buys you a few hours of peace at compound interest. Tomorrow you'll need more. Next week even more. It's like a subscription service from hell. Except instead of cancelling Netflix, you're trying to cancel your body's complete dependency on liquid opium. You sit at your writing desk, pen in hand, trying to compose a letter to your sister. She's been asking why you haven't visited. How do you explain that travelling means calculating how much laudanum to pack? That you can't risk running out in an unfamiliar town? That you've become a prisoner in your own respectable life? The afternoon sun slants through the lace curtains, casting shadows that look like prison bars across your paper. You dip your pen and write. Dearest Margaret, I regret I cannot visit this month. My health requires I remain close to home and my physician's care. Another polite lie. Another day in your beautiful cage. Your teenage daughter bursts into the room, all excitement about the upcoming ball. She wants a new dress, something daring with a lower neckline. You remember being her age, full of hope and plans, before the first prescription, before the nervous exhaustion, before the cure became the disease. Mother, are you listening? She asks, and you realise you've been staring at nothing, lost in the fog. This is what scares you most. Not the physical addiction, but the way laudanum steals moments, entire conversations, pieces of your life that dissolve like sugar in tea. Evening comes with its familiar ritual. Another dose before dinner to maintain appearances. You need steady hands to pour the tea, a clear voice for conversation. Your family sees what they want to see. A properly medicated lady managing her delicate constitution. They don't see the woman counting drops like a miser counts coins, calculating how many days until she needs another bottle. As you prepare for bed, you catch your reflection in the mirror. Your eyes look hollow, older than your years. But tomorrow you'll powder your face, tighten your corset, and play the part of the perfect Victorian woman. After all, what other choice do you have? This is 1865, and ladies don't recover from addiction. They simply learn to hide it better. The laudanum bottle sits on your nightstand, catching the gaslight like liquid amber. Your sweetest poison. Your most faithful companion. Your beautiful, terrible secret that everyone knows but no one discusses. You're 23 years old in 1862, and your life has already been decided for you. Marriage or spinsterhood. Those are your options. It's like being asked to choose between drowning or burning. Either way, you're done for. Your brother is studying law at Oxford. Your male cousins are exploring careers in medicine, the military, business, you. You get to practice your needlepoint and wait for a suitable husband. The most exciting decision you're allowed to make is whether to have rose or lavender water in your bath. The drawing room where you spend most of your days might as well have bars on the windows. Sure, they're dressed up with Belgian lace curtains, but a cage is a cage, even when it's decorated with doilies. You're not allowed to walk outside unaccompanied, can't visit a friend without a chaperone. God forbid you're seen talking to a man who isn't a relative. Your reputation would be shattered faster than china on cobblestones. Your daily schedule reads like a prison routine. Breakfast at 8. Morning calls from 10 to noon. Luncheon at 1. Afternoon calls from 3 to 5. Dinner at 8. Bed by 11. Repeat until death or marriage, whichever comes first. But here's where it gets interesting. While you can't smoke tobacco, unladylike, drink spirits, scandalous, or even laugh too loudly, vulgar, you can take your medicine. That little brown bottle of laudanum, perfectly acceptable. Doctor's orders, after all. Your mother takes it for her delicate nerves. Your aunt for her women's troubles. Your married sister for the strain of motherhood. It's the one rebellion that comes with a prescription. The only escape route that society has accidentally left unlocked. You discover this loophole after your father refuses another suitor on your behalf. Not wealthy enough, apparently. That night, the walls of your bedroom feel like they're closing in. Your chest tightens. You can't breathe. The maid brings you laudanum for your hysteria, and suddenly the world doesn't feel quite so suffocating. 20 drops and the cage becomes bearable. 30 drops and you almost forget it exists. It's like having a secret key to your own mind, a way to slip out of your life without ever leaving your room. Your diary becomes your only confidant. You write in careful script, "Took my medicine again today. Mother approves. She says it gives me colour in my cheeks." What you don't write is that it also gives you the ability to sit through another evening of mind-numbing conversation about the weather and Lady Pemberton's new curtains without screaming. The irony isn't lost on you. Men drink themselves stupid in their gentlemen's clubs, and it's considered social bonding. Women sip laudanum in their bedrooms, and it's medical treatment. Same escape, different packaging. Like calling a prison a protective custody facility. Your younger sister's getting married next month. 17 years old and thrilled about her new household. You want to warn her, but what would you say? That marriage is just a cage with better furniture? That she'll probably end up like you, counting drops of laudanum like rosary beads. Instead, you help her choose wedding flowers and pretend excitement you don't feel. Another dose helps maintain the performance. You're becoming quite the actress, playing the part of the dutiful daughter while slowly dissolving from the inside out. The suffragettes are starting to make noise in London, but that's a world away from your provincial town. Here, suggesting women should vote is like suggesting fish should fly. Absurd, unnatural, but somehow being slowly poisoned by opium while imprisoned in silk and lace. Perfectly natural. Thursday afternoon, 1863. You're at Mrs. Worthington's weekly tea party, and the hypocrisy is thicker than the Devon cream on your scones. Lady Pemberton is lecturing about the dreadful opium dens in East London, clutching her pearls with one hand and her teacup with the other. What she doesn't mention is the bottle of chloral hydrate in her purse, her sleeping aid that she takes 3 times daily. It's like watching someone denounce alcoholism while drinking wine from a coffee mug. The rules of Victorian female propriety are more complex than chess, and twice as arbitrary. You can't show your ankles, but you can be unconscious on laudanum by 3 p.m. You can't express opinions on politics, but you can be too medicated to form them. You can't own property, but you can own enough opium to kill a horse. Mrs. Ashford arrives late, apologising profusely. Her pupils are pinpricks. Morphine injection. You'd bet your best bonnet on it. She's seeing a new doctor in London who specialises in nervous exhaustion. Translation: he's found a more expensive way to feed her addiction. The conversation turns to the working class women in the factories. "Taking drops," someone whispers disapprovingly. Right there at there. "Machines! The scandal!" Meanwhile, every woman in this room has a silver laudanum spoon in her reticule. But that's different, you see. Theirs is medicine. The factory girls? That's drug abuse. You excuse yourself to the powder room and take your afternoon dose. The face in the mirror looks tired, older than your 24 years. But when you return to the parlour, you're bright and cheerful, the perfect society lady. Laudanum doesn't just numb pain, it helps you perform femininity to Victorian standards. Quiet, agreeable, never too much of anything. Your cousin Charlotte visits from London with stories of women who've joined the rational dress movement, wearing bloomers instead of crinolines. The room erupts in shocked whispers. Bloomers, the very idea. But nobody bats an eye when Charlotte mentions her doctor prescribed cocaine drops for her sinuses. That's progress, apparently. Cocaine is fine, but bifurcated garments are a bridge too far. The local physician, Dr. Morrison, makes his rounds among the ladies like a dealer in a velvet waistcoat. He never uses words like addiction or dependence. Instead, it's managing your condition and maintaining your treatments. He's gotten rich selling respectable women their daily oblivion, one prescription at a time. You've started needing more to achieve the same effect. What started as 20 drops is now 40, sometimes 50. But admitting this would mean admitting weakness, and Victorian ladies don't have weaknesses. They have constitutions that require careful management. Your husband notices you're taking more medicine lately. His concern lasts exactly as long as it takes you to assure him the doctor approves. Men trust doctors implicitly when it comes to their wives' bodies. After all, what would women know about their own health? We're too delicate, too emotional, too hysterical to make such decisions. The ultimate irony? Alcohol is considered a moral failing, but opiates are medical necessity. A woman drunk on gin is a disgrace. A woman floating on laudanum is properly managed. It's like saying drowning in the ocean is tragic, but drowning in a bathtub is therapeutic. You discover you're not alone when Mrs. Hamilton corners you after church one Sunday in March, 1864. She recognises the signs, the slightly delayed responses, the glassy afternoon eyes, the way you discreetly count drops when you think no one's watching. "Darling," she whispers, pulling you into the vestry. "Which chemist do you use? It's like being inducted into a secret society you never asked to join." The Laudanum ladies, united by their shared dependence and mutual silence. She tells you about Mr. Crawford's pharmacy on King Street. He never asks questions and always has stock. In exchange, you share that doctor. Morrison will increase dosages without the tedious lectures about moderation. This underground network of addicted women operates with the efficiency of a Swiss watch. Information flows through tea parties and charity committees. Who's selling pure product? Which doctors are sympathetic? How to hide the signs from husbands and servants. You learn the code words. Feeling delicate means running low on supply. Visiting my sister in Bath means detoxing unsuccessfully. Under the weather means the dose isn't working anymore. It's a language of euphemisms as elaborate as any foreign tongue. Your friend Elizabeth confides that she's been adding laudanum to her husband's brandy, just enough to make him sleep through her own higher doses. "He thinks I'm finally becoming a proper wife," she laughs bitterly. "Quiet, docile, no opinions. If only he knew it's because I'm too medicated to argue." The maids know, of course. They're the ones who dispose of the empty bottles, who notice when their mistresses can barely rise before noon. But they keep silent. Their employment depends on it. Besides, many of them have their own bottles hidden away. Godfrey's cordial for their babies, laudanum for their own exhaustion. You attend a lecture on female hysteria and its treatment, with several other ladies from your social circle. The doctor speaks for 2 hours about the dangers of women's emotional excess, their need for medical management. You're all taking notes, but really you're comparing dosages in the margins of your notebooks. The pregnancy fears are real. Every woman knows someone who couldn't stop taking laudanum while carrying a child. The baby's born sleepy, failing to thrive, or worse. But stopping means facing the withdrawal, the questions, the reality of what you've become. So the cycle continues generation to generation, mother to daughter. Mrs. Taylor's daughter just turned 16 and had her first prescription for monthly troubles. You watch the girl's mother and see the conflict in her eyes. Relief that her daughter's pain is managed. Horror that she's starting down the same path. But what's the alternative? Suffering in silence. That's what women have always done. The sisterhood extends across class lines in unexpected ways. You recognise the signs in your lady's maid, in the governess, in the pastor's wife. That slight tremor before the afternoon dose, the panic when snow blocks the roads to town. The way conversation becomes more animated exactly 45 minutes after tea time. You're attending a soirée at Lady Winthrop's Belgravia mansion, 1866. The chandelier above costs more than a working family sees in a lifetime. The ladies retire to the drawing room after dinner, and that's when the real party begins. Lady Winthrop produces an exquisite crystal decanter, filled with what she calls her special tonic. It's laudanum, of course, but mixed with French brandy and rosewater. Served in delicate Venetian glasses, it might as well be champagne. This is how the rich get high, with style and denial in equal measure. Her personal physician, Dr. Harrington, charges £50 per consultation. Superb. That's more than a housemaid makes in a year. For that price, he provides not just prescriptions, but absolution. He's invented an entire medical condition for Lady Winthrop. Nervous exhaustion of the superior classes. It sounds more dignified than drug addiction, doesn't it? The conversation flows as freely as the laudanum. These women discuss their physicians like they're collecting rare artefacts. Dr. Pembroke from Harley Street is divine. He never asks tiresome questions. Have you tried Dr. Ashford's morphine preparation? It's absolutely transformative. You notice the subtle competition. Who has the most exotic preparation? The most expensive physician? The most elaborate justification for their addiction? It's like watching people brag about their prison cell's thread count. Lady Winthrop's daughter, barely 18, joins the circle. Her mother pours her a glass without hesitation. For your nerves, darling. We must prepare you for the season. And so another generation learns that feelings are something to be medicated away, especially if you can afford the good stuff. The butler discreetly refills the decanter. He knows exactly what's in it, just as he knows about Lord Winthrop's gambling debts and mistresses. But silence is part of his salary. The rich don't have drug problems. They have medical conditions requiring sophisticated treatment. Your middle-class neighbourhood in Clapham, 1867, runs on laudanum like a steam engine runs on coal. Every household has its bottles, but here they're hidden in bedroom drawers, not displayed in crystal decanters. Mrs. Robertson next door takes 30 drops for her headaches. Mrs. Collins across the street needs 40 for her women's troubles. You're up to 50 for your nervous condition. It's a middle-class arms race of self-medication, everyone pretending they're not as dependent as their neighbours. The local chemist, Mr. Bradley, knows every woman's dosage by heart. He's like a suburban drug dealer with a legitimate storefront. He offers payment plans for his regular customers. Addiction on instalment. How very modern. Your husband earns enough to keep you comfortable, but not enough for Harley Street doctors, so you make do with Dr. Palmer, who operates from rooms above the haberdashery. His medical degree might be questionable, but his prescriptions are reliable. The middle-class addiction has its own desperate creativity. You water down your husband's brandy to make your laudanum budget stretch further. You sell your grandmother's brooch to stock up before the chemist's August holiday. You learn to forge your husband's signature on cheques. After all, the bank clerk is discreetly buying cocaine drops from the same chemist. Tea parties become group therapy sessions in denial. Everyone comparing symptoms, nobody admitting addiction. I only take it when absolutely necessary, says Mrs. Davies, who hasn't gone a day without it in 3 years. You all nod, sympathetically, conspirators in your shared delusion. Down in Whitechapel, 1868, addiction looks different. You're a factory worker, 14 hours a day at the textile mill. Your back screams, your hands are raw, and laudanum is the only thing that makes tomorrow possible. Here it's called mother's friend or quietness. 3 pence a bottle from the corner shop sold between the candles and the carbolic soap. No fancy preparations, no rose water, just raw opium and alcohol that burns going down. You share a room with 2 other women, all of you dependent on your daily doses. When one runs out of money, you pool resources. It's solidarity born of desperation. You've seen what withdrawal does to someone who has to work the looms. The factory owners know. Of course they know. Some even sell it at the company store, marked up 30%. They'd rather have you drowsy and compliant than sober and demanding better wages. It's like they're running a pharmacy and a sweatshop under the same roof. Your children grow up thinking the medicine bottle is as normal as bread and tea. Your daughter, only 8, already knows to be quiet when mother hasn't had her drops. Your infant son was born dependent, crying unless dosed with Godfrey's cordial. The missions come through, preaching about the evils of drink and the virtue of hard work. They don't mention the laudanum. Maybe they don't see it, or maybe they know it's the only thing keeping the whole system from collapsing. You're in the Barrett household, Wimpole Street, 1845. Elizabeth Barrett lies propped on pillows, reaching for her laudanum with the practiced motion of years of dependence. Her poetry might soar, but her body is anchored to this bitter brown liquid. "Opium! Opium! Night after night," she writes to her friend Mary Russell Mitford. Not a confession, but a statement of fact, like noting the weather. She takes it for her lung condition, her spine, her nerves. The reasons multiply like her doses. Her brother Edward tries to wean her off it. He measures her doses, dilutes them gradually. But Elizabeth is cleverer than he thinks. She has backup supplies hidden in her book bindings, extra bottles ordered under assumed names. Addiction makes criminals of us all. When Robert Browning begins courting her, she panics. How do you explain to a suitor that you're as married to laudanum as you ever could be to him? That your wedding trousseau must include a reliable chemist's address? She writes her finest work in the hours after her evening dose, when the pain recedes and her mind floats free. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. But she could equally write How do I need thee to her laudanum bottle. The irony isn't lost on her. She writes about freedom, passion, and women's souls while being utterly enslaved to a pharmaceutical. It's like composing hymns to liberty from inside a locked room, which, in a way, she is. Dorothy Wordsworth's journals, which you read in 1850, reveal another story. The sister of the great poet, reduced to counting drops and measuring misery. Her entries shift from observations of nature to obsessions with her doses. Very unwell. Took laudanum. Appears so frequently it might as well be printed on the page. She started taking it for toothaches, then headaches, then the general ache of existence. By the end, she needed it just to feel normal, though normal is a word that loses meaning when you're constantly medicated. Sarah Coleridge inherited both her father's literary genius and his addictive tendencies. It's like a family curse passed down with the silver. She writes about poppies with the intimacy of a lover, because in many ways they are her most constant companion. Her poem, Poppies, isn't just about flowers, it's autobiography disguised as botany. Every line drips with the recognition of someone who knows these plants not as garden decorations, but as the source of her salvation and damnation. Mary Robinson, actress turned writer, documents her laudanum use with theatrical flair. She doesn't hide it. Why should she? Half of London's literary scene is floating on various substances. The Romantic movement might as well be renamed the pharmaceutical movement. You descend into a Limehouse opium den, 1875. The newspapers paint these places as exotic hells, full of oriental mystery and degradation. The reality is both more mundane and more tragic. The den is really just a basement room, thick with sweet smoke and human desperation. Chinese sailors lie on wooden bunks alongside English dock workers, Irish washerwomen, and yes, the occasional lady who's taken a wrong turn from respectability. The proprietor, R. Singh, doesn't judge. Money is money, whether it comes from a duchess or a docker. He prepares the pipes with practiced efficiency, a businessman serving a need that crosses all boundaries of class and race. You recognise Mrs. Fairfax from Mayfair, though she's traded her silk gown for a working woman's clothes. She nods at you. The acknowledgement of mutual destruction. Tomorrow you'll both pretend this never happened, if there is a tomorrow. The smoke is different from laudanum, heavier, more immediate. It pulls you down into velvet darkness where nothing matters except the next pipe. Here, the pretense drops away. No one talks about medicine or nervous conditions. This is pure escape, honest in its purposelessness. The police raid occasionally, but they're easily bribed. Some of them are customers themselves, off-duty and desperate for their own oblivion. The law is flexible when those enforcing it are equally compromised. The newspapers in 1880 scream about innocent English girls being lured into Chinese opium dens. It's racism dressed up as moral concern, but it sells papers and justifies crackdowns on Chinese businesses. The truth is more complex. Yes, some English women frequent the dens, but they're hardly innocent victims. They're workers, addicts, people seeking escape from lives that offer little else. The Chinese proprietors are serving a demand created by English society itself. You meet Annie, 17, who claims her Chinese husband forced her into addiction. But privately, she admits she was using laudanum long before she met him. The den just offered a more honest space for her dependency, without the pretense of medical necessity. The moral reformers arrive with their pamphlets and prayers, trying to save the English women. They offer rehabilitation, which means locked asylums and forced withdrawal without medical support. Many women choose the dens over this salvation. You're a working mother in Manchester, 1872. The cotton mill won't wait for your baby to stop crying. Your choice is simple: drug your child or lose your job. It's not really a choice at all. Godfrey's cordial is everywhere, sold at the grocer's between the bread and butter, 1 teaspoon, and your infant sleeps for hours. The label doesn't mention it contains enough opium to knock out an adult. Why would it? That might hurt sales. Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup is advertised in every newspaper. For children teething, the advertisements show cherubic babies sleeping peacefully. They don't show the ones who never wake up, the ones who waste away because they're too drugged to feed. You know it's dangerous. You've seen neighbours' babies die, officially from teething or convulsions, but really from opium overdose. But what's the alternative? You can't afford to stop working, and the baby can't come to the factory. The health visitors come around occasionally, clucking their tongues at the medicine bottles. They're middle-class women who've never had to choose between their child's immediate safety and their family's survival. Their own children are minded by nursemaids, probably drugged too, just more discreetly. The infant mortality statistics from 1873 tell a story no one wants to read. In some Manchester districts, 1 in 3 babies doesn't see their first birthday. The official causes are listed as debility, atrophy, convulsions. The real cause is often opium. You attend too many infant funerals. Tiny coffins carried by fathers who know exactly what killed their children but can't afford to care. The mothers stand silent, clutching their remaining children and their medicine bottles with equal desperation. Dr. Thompson publishes a report on infant drugging. He estimates that 80% of working-class children regularly receive opium preparations. The report is buried quickly. Too many interests depend on keeping the population quiet and productive. The chemists know they're selling death in small bottles, but it's legal, profitable, and everyone's doing it. Mr. Henderson tells himself he's providing a public service. Without the cordials, these children would suffer. That some die is regrettable but inevitable. By 1878, the medical establishment can no longer ignore what they've created. Dr. Clifford Allbutt coins the term morphinomania, finally giving a name to what everyone's been pretending doesn't exist. Medical journals begin publishing articles about iatrogenic addiction caused by medical treatment. It's a spectacular example of closing the stable door after the horse has not only bolted but founded its own racing dynasty. The Pharmacy Act of 1868 was supposed to control opium sales, requiring that only qualified chemists could sell it. But qualifications are easily bought, and the Act has more loopholes than a piece of lace. All it really does is make opium slightly more expensive. Doctors start prescribing chloral hydrate as a safer alternative to laudanum. Within 5 years, chloral addiction is rampant. It's like replacing gin with vodka and calling it temperance. The Society for the Suppression of the Opium Trade forms in 1874, but they're more concerned with the Chinese opium trade than domestic addiction. It's easier to fight a problem overseas than acknowledge the one in your own medicine cabinet. Religious reformers take up the cause, but their solution is prayer and moral fortitude. They establish retreats for addicted women, essentially prisons where withdrawal is treated as a spiritual failing rather than a medical crisis. The temperance movement occasionally mentions opium, but alcohol remains their primary target. It's politically safer to attack the working man's beer than the middle-class woman's laudanum prescription. The opium your London chemist sells started in Indian poppy fields, where farmers work under British colonial control. The East India Company built an empire on opium, forcing Indian farmers to grow poppies instead of food. That same opium floods into China, creating millions of addicts and generating massive profits that flow back to Britain. The wealth of Victorian London is built partially on addiction, both foreign and domestic. Your laudanum purchase funds this entire system. Every dose connects you to Indian farmers, Chinese addicts, British merchants, and colonial administrators. It's globalization through narcotics, the world's first international drug cartel run by the British government. By 1880, The British domestic opium market is worth millions of pounds annually. Women comprise the majority of consumers, making them unwitting economic drivers of a massive industry. Pharmaceutical companies grow rich selling various opium preparations. Savory and Moore, established chemists to Queen Victoria, produce over 50 different opium-based medicines. They're drug dealers with royal warrants. The economic ripple effects are enormous. Chemist shops multiply to meet demand. Doctors build practices on managing addiction. Even the glass bottle industry benefits from the constant need for laudanum containers. World War I changes everything. The government needs morphine for wounded soldiers, not Victorian ladies with nervous conditions. The Dangerous Drugs Act of 1920 finally criminalises recreational opium use. Suddenly, women who've been legally addicted for decades are criminals. Some manage to get medical exemptions, maintaining their habits through increasingly sceptical doctors. Others turn to the new underground market, where quality is questionable and prices soar. The parallels to modern prescription drug epidemics are unmistakable. OxyContin is our laudanum, prescribed too freely and creating addiction in those seeking legitimate pain relief. We've learned nothing and everything simultaneously. The true scope of Victorian women's opium addiction was deliberately obscured. Death certificates listed exhaustion, or nervous collapse rather than overdose. Medical records were destroyed or sanitised. Family histories were rewritten. How many female writers, artists and thinkers had their work shaped by opium? How many never created at all, lost to the fog of constant medication? These are questions without answers, stories without endings. Your great-grandmother's delicate constitution might have been addiction. That family tendency toward nervousness could be generations of women self-medicating trauma and confinement. The past isn't past. It runs through our veins like phantom laudanum. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And sometimes it rhymes with the bitter taste of laudanum, echoing through generations of women who found their only agency in addiction. You wake up on January 17th, 1920. The Dangerous Drugs Act has just come into effect. Your laudanum, your constant companion for the past 15 years, is now illegal. The bottle on your nightstand, the one that's gotten you through childbirth, deaths, disappointments, and the crushing weight of everyday existence, contains exactly 12 drops. After that, you're on your own. The chemist, Mr. Bradley, who served you faithfully for over a decade, can no longer help. He looks at you with a mixture of pity and relief when you arrive at his shop. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harrison," he says, not meeting your eyes. "The law is the law." Behind him you can see the locked cabinet where the opiates are now stored, available only with special licenses that no doctor will write for a woman with nervous troubles. Your hands are already shaking, not from withdrawal, not yet, but from fear. You've tried to stop before. Remember 1915? You lasted 3 days before the sweating, vomiting and hallucinations drove you back. Your husband found you on the bathroom floor begging imaginary insects to stop crawling under your skin. The doctor's solution? More laudanum, of course. But now there's no more laudanum to be had. At least, not legally. You're not alone in this crisis. Across London, across Britain, thousands of women are counting their last drops. Mrs. Pemberton from church has already checked herself into a private sanatorium. She can afford medical supervision for her withdrawal. Mrs. Collins down the street isn't so lucky. You saw her this morning, haggling with a suspicious character near the docks. The black market has already emerged like mushrooms after rain. Your daughter watches you carefully measure those 12 drops into your afternoon tea. She's 16 now, old enough to understand. "Mother," she says quietly, "what will you do when it's gone? You don't have an answer. How do you explain that those drops aren't just medicine? They're the glue holding your entire existence together." The irony burns worse than the laudanum ever did. Men returning from the war, shattered and shell-shocked, receive morphine for their trauma. But women, whose trauma was domestic, whose battles were fought in corsets and drawing rooms, are expected to simply stop, as if 15 years of dependency can be wished away by an act of parliament. That evening, you attend what will be your last proper dinner party. Every woman there has the same haunted look, the same careful movements of someone rationing their remaining supplies. Lady Worthington jokes darkly that they should form a Laudanum Ladies' Last Supper Club. Nobody laughs. Mrs. Taylor pulls you aside. "There's a doctor in Whitechapel," she whispers. "He'll write prescriptions from certain conditions. Expensive, but reliable." She slips you an address written on perfumed paper. You pocket it, hating yourself for the relief you feel. February 1920. Your legitimate supply exhausted weeks ago. You're now part of London's newest criminal class, respectable women seeking illegal drugs. The doctor in Whitechapel turns out to be a struck-off physician named Hartley. His surgery is a dingy room above a pie shop. He charges £5 for a prescription that would have cost shillings before. He diagnoses you with severe neural inflammation requiring ongoing opioid therapy. Medical nonsense that might fool a police constable, but wouldn't pass any real scrutiny. The pharmacist who fills this prescription operates from a basement in Soho. You have to knock 3 times, pause, then knock twice more. It's like a music hall farce, except the comedy is your life falling apart. The laudanum he provides is diluted, adulterated, sometimes mixed with God knows what. But it's better than nothing. Better than the insects under your skin. You recognise other women in that basement. Teachers, shopkeepers' wives, even a magistrate's widow. All of you avoiding eye contact, clutching your prescriptions like life preservers. The social hierarchy that once divided you has dissolved in shared desperation. Addiction, it turns out, is the great equaliser. Your husband notices the money disappearing but says nothing. He's seen you try to stop, seen what withdrawal does. Perhaps he prefers a quietly addicted wife to a loudly suffering one. The British genius for not discussing the obvious serves you both well. Meanwhile, the newspapers trumpet the success of the Dangerous Drugs Act. Britain defeats the Opium Menace, they proclaim, illustrating their articles with photos of seized shipments and arrested Chinese dealers. They don't mention the middle-class women haunting Soho basements, or the suicide rates that have mysteriously spiked since January. Your maid Sarah approaches you one day with an offer. Her cousin works at a hospital and can redirect morphine supplies. The price is outrageous, but morphine is stronger than laudanum. A smaller dose goes further. You agree, crossing another line you never thought you'd cross. You're now buying stolen medical supplies from your servant. If your mother could see you now, she'd die of shame. Then again, she died of an overdose of sleeping draught in 1918, so perhaps she'd understand. March 1920. Your sister Elizabeth has been committed to Colney Hatch Lunatic Asylum for moral insanity and drug habituation. You visit her on a grey Sunday that matches your mood. The asylum is a Victorian nightmare of echoing corridors and barred windows. Elizabeth is in the recovery ward, which is a euphemism for a place where women scream through withdrawal without relief. She's lost 2 stone in 3 weeks. Her arms are covered in bruises from the restraints they use when the convulsions start. "They give us cold baths for the cravings," she tells you, her voice hollow. "Ice water, 3 times a day. The doctor says it shocks the system back to normal." Her laugh is bitter. 20 years on laudanum and they think ice water is the cure. The ward is full of women like Elizabeth, and like you. Middle-class wives and mothers who became addicted through medical treatment, now being punished for their dependency. The actual treatment consists mainly of religious lectures and occupational therapy. They're teaching women who ran households and raised children to weave baskets, as if busy hands could cure chemical dependency. You slip Elizabeth a small vial of laudanum hidden in a jam jar. She clutches it like a holy relic. "Just enough to sleep," she whispers. "The nights are the worst." You both know she'll be searched later, the vial confiscated, punishment administered. But for now she has hope. The attending physician, Dr. Morrison, catches you on the way out. "Your sister is making progress," he lies smoothly. "Another month and she'll be cured." You want to scream that she'll never be cured, that none of you will ever be cured, that you've created a generation of addicts and now you're punishing them for it. Instead, you nod politely and leave. On the train home, you take your afternoon dose, now procured from a new source, a veterinarian who asks no questions. The laudanum for horses is stronger, more unpredictable. Last week you nearly overdosed. Spending 6 hours convinced you were floating above your own body, but it's better than the asylum. Anything is better than the asylum. By summer 1920, the obituaries tell a coded story. Died peacefully at home after a brief illness. passed away unexpectedly, succumbed to nervous exhaustion. These are the women who couldn't navigate the new world, who chose their own exit rather than face withdrawal or the asylum. Mrs. Pemberton is among them. Her husband finds her in the rose garden, dressed in her best gown, an empty bottle of chloral hydrate beside her. The official cause of death is listed as heart failure. Everyone knows the truth. Nobody speaks it. You attend her funeral, along with dozens of other women walking the same tightrope. The vicar speaks of God's mercy and eternal rest. You're all thinking about your own dwindling supplies, your own impossible futures. The reception afterward is subdued, everyone leaving early to manage their carefully timed doses. Your own supply is becoming erratic. The veterinarian was arrested. Dr. Hartley disappeared, probably fled to the continent. You're now buying from a Turkish sailor who may or may not be selling you actual opium. The effects are unpredictable. Sometimes nothing. Sometimes so strong you lose entire days. Your daughter finds you one afternoon, collapsed in the garden, barely breathing. She manages to revive you with strong coffee and walking you around the garden for hours. "Mother, you have to stop," she pleads. "I'll help you. We'll go away somewhere to the seaside. You can recover there." But you know better. You've been taking opiates for 16 years. Your body doesn't remember how to function without them. Every cell screams for the drug. It's not about willpower or moral strength. It's about biology that's been fundamentally altered. Your daughter Charlotte is getting married in September 1920. You're determined to be present, truly present, for her wedding. This means carefully managing your doses, not too much to be obviously impaired, not too little to risk withdrawal symptoms during the ceremony. The wedding preparations are torture. Every fitting, every decision, every social interaction requires chemical calibration. You've become an expert at titration, knowing exactly how many drops get you through a 2-hour tea versus a 4-hour shopping expedition. Charlotte pretends not to notice when your hands shake during the dress fitting. The seamstress, paid well for her discretion, says nothing when you excuse yourself repeatedly to the powder room. Everyone maintains the fiction that you're simply delicate. The night before the wedding, Charlotte comes to your room. "Mother," she says, "I know about the laudanum." "I've always known." The pretense finally drops, and you both cry. Her for the mother she never really had, you for the mother you never got to be. She tells you about watching you drift away over the years, present in body but absent in spirit. About covering for your illnesses, making excuses for your absences, learning to forge your signature on school documents when you were too medicated to write. "I promised myself I'd never touch the stuff," she says. But then she admits that when her fiancé was late returning from France, when the telegram stopped coming, she understood the appeal. "I stood in the chemist shop looking at the bottles, and I finally understood why you started." The wedding itself is a blur, not from the laudanum but from the effort of appearing normal while your body rebels against the reduced dose. You make it through the ceremony, the photographs, the reception. In every picture you're smiling, playing the part of the proud mother. Nobody would guess that you're counting the minutes until you can retreat and take your evening dose. October 1920. You're running out of options and money. The black market prices have tripled. Your husband has started questioning the household accounts. Your wedding ring, your mother's pearls, several valuable first editions, all secretly sold to fund your addiction. You make one last attempt at withdrawal. This time you hire a private nurse, someone who's helped other women through this. She's frank about what to expect. 3 days of hell, 3 weeks of purgatory, 3 months of limbo, and then maybe, you start to feel human again. The first day you vomit until there's nothing left, then continue retching bile. Your skin feels like it's being peeled off layer by layer. The nurse forces water into you, spoonful by spoonful. The second day, the hallucinations start. The wallpaper patterns turn into faces, all of them judging you. You see your mother, dead these 2 years, sitting in the corner, shaking her head in disappointment. Insects crawl across the ceiling, spelling out words: failure, weak, pathetic. The third day, you break. The physical agony combined with the mental torture is beyond endurance. You beg the nurse for just a small dose, just enough to take the edge off. She refuses. You offer her everything you own. She refuses. Finally, you try to throw yourself from the window. She restrains you, calling for your husband's help. He holds you while you thrash and scream. This proper Victorian gentleman confronted with the raw reality of what your marriage has become. Please, you beg him, just let me die. It would be kinder. But he won't let go. Neither will the nurse. They force you through day 4, day 5, day 6. Slowly, agonizingly, the acute symptoms begin to fade. You're left exhausted, depleted, but alive. December 1920. You've been clean for 2 months. Clean. Such a strange word for simply not poisoning yourself daily. You're one of the lucky ones. You had resources, support, and somehow the strength to endure what many couldn't. But recovery isn't what you expected. The physical withdrawal has passed, but the psychological dependency remains. Every day at 3 p.m. your body expects its dose. Every stressful moment, every disappointment, every minor illness triggers the craving. You attend a discreet gathering of women in similar situations. It's not officially a support group, such things don't exist yet, but rather a ladies' health circle. You share stories, strategies, failures. Mrs. Andrews has been clean for 6 months, but admits she dreams about laudanum nightly. Mrs. Foster made it 8 months before relapsing after her son's death. The meeting is interrupted by Mrs. Chapman's arrival. She's clearly intoxicated on something. Her pupils are pinpoints, her speech slurred. Nobody says anything. You all understand. The path from addiction isn't straight, and judgment helps no one. You learn about the women who didn't make it. Suicide rates among former addicts are astronomical. Many who successfully withdrew from opiates became alcoholics instead, trading one dependency for another. Others simply faded away, unable to cope with reality unmediated by chemicals. Your own family is forever changed. Your husband now locks the medicine cabinet and controls all pharmaceutical purchases. Your daughter watches you carefully, alert for any sign of relapse. Trust, once broken by years of deception, isn't easily rebuilt. You find work with a charity helping working-class women affected by the new drug laws. Many can't afford private treatment or nurses. They're going through withdrawal while still working in factories, caring for children, maintaining households. Their suffering is invisible, unacknowledged by a society eager to declare the drug problem solved. January 17th, 1921, 1 year since the Dangerous Drugs Act. You've survived what many didn't, but survival isn't the same as living. You're like a ghost haunting your own life, going through motions that once had meaning. The world has moved on. The newspapers no longer mention the epidemic. The medical journals have shifted focus to new treatments, new theories. It's as if collective amnesia has settled over society, erasing the decades when opium ran through Britain's veins like blood. But you remember, your body remembers, every ache that once would have been soothed with laudanum now must be endured. Every anxiety that once would have been chemically calmed now must be faced. You're learning, at 43, how to experience life without a pharmaceutical filter. You write letters to your daughter, trying to explain your years of absence while present. I was there but not there, you write. Loving you through a fog that never lifted. She writes back, generous in her understanding but honest about her hurt. Healing, you're learning, is measured in generations, not months. The new young mothers in your neighbourhood have no idea about the epidemic that touched nearly every household just years ago. They complain about their crying babies, their exhaustion, their nerves. You want to warn them about the easy solutions, the helpful doctors, the slippery slope from medicine to dependency. But they wouldn't believe you. Every generation thinks it's immune to the failures of the previous one. You keep one empty laudanum bottle hidden in your jewellery box. Not as temptation, but as reminder. Sometimes you hold it, remembering the weight of it full, the anticipation of relief it promised. The bottle is amber glass, beautiful in its way, catching the light like liquid honey. Such an elegant container for such an insidious poison. Final reflection. As the Victorian era fades into history, we're left with the ghosts of all those medicated women. They lived in gilded cages, finding freedom only in pharmaceutical bottles. They were victims of their time, their class, their gender, and ultimately the medicines that promised relief but delivered dependency. The opium epidemic among Victorian women wasn't just a medical crisis. It was a symptom of a society that offered women no legitimate outlets for pain, frustration, or ambition. When the cure becomes worse than the disease, perhaps the real sickness lies not in individual bodies, but in the social structures that confine them. Tonight, as you drift off to sleep without the aid of laudanum, remember those who couldn't. Their stories, hidden for so long, deserve to be told, not as cautionary tales or moral lessons, but as human experiences of suffering, survival, and the search for escape in a world that offered few exits. The brown bottles are mostly gone now, replaced by white pills and modern prescriptions. But the underlying tensions remain. The gap between women's reality and society's expectations, the medicalisation of female emotion, the search for chemical solutions to social problems. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, and sometimes it rhymes with the bitter taste of laudanum, echoing through generations of women who found their only agency in addiction.